following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hi, welcome to The Ring and All Other Sports. My name is Leo Connors, and tonight I got a very special guest, and I'm going to try to get this right. The longest independent wrestling title reign in wrestling history is the Granite State Champion, my guest, Tough Talk Tony Spencer. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, the pleasure's all yours, Leo. Absolutely.
It is, and it really is.
Now, I just want to quantify that for everyone at home. That is an approximate reign of 3,593 days.
It's impressive.
I'm well on my way to beating Bruno.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is,
to even
right?
think like that. Wow.
I do. I mean, I think when people speak about wrestlers who've had an impact as far as lengthy title reigns go, they're going to mention Bruno Sammartino. Right. They're going to mention superstar Billy Graham. They're going to mention Macho Man Randy Savage, and they're going to mention Tough Talk Tony Spencer, all in the same breath.
And now that I know this, you will be the number one eventually.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I've actually commissioned locally
Yep.
For a brand new Granite State Championship. There is a Metalworks somewhere in, and of course I can't reveal my crafters. That's a trade secret.
Absolutely.
But I did get the people that Ted DiBiase used.
Okay.
Not for the $1 Million Championship, for other projects.
Right.
But they're located right here in the great state of New Hampshire. They're making me a brand new Granite State Championship belt, and hopefully I'll be debuting it soon.
Nice. That's great. Maybe you can debut it here.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
If this goes well.
I hope it does. It
Right.
should. But we're going to get right into it. Where'd you grow up?
Well, I'm originally from Rancho Cucamonga, California.
Okay.
Rancho Cucamonga, I'm sure someone of your, what's the polite way to say this? Statesmanship.
Yeah.
Someone of your generation is familiar with Jack Benny,
Yes, I am.
whose old call was last stop Cucamonga. That's exactly where I'm from.
Nice.
Actually, I just recently took a 23andMe DNA test and found out my true parentage. My parents were not who they say they are.
Wow.
I'm actually much like Jon Snow on Game of Thrones, I am somewhat royalty. My real father is a little named Jumbo Saruda. My mother, Lady Diana, Princess Diana. Apparently there was a tryst on a European tour.
Right.
No one was privy to it. I recently learned of my heritage myself. This actually puts me 27th in line for the British throne.
Nice.
It's pretty fascinating.
There it is.
So
I could see it.
I mean, I think that the crown jewels are something that are definitely in my future.
Absolutely. Did you ever see the Crown Jewels tag team back? You brought up the Crown Jewels, Jason Rumble and Darling Damon.
I've heard of Jason Rumble. I've met Jason Rumble.
Okay. No, I'm just saying the Crown Jewels was a great tag team. I just figured I'd throw that.
You know
at
what the thing is too? I think
What's
the
that?
most important thing about a tag team is you got to have a good name.
Right.
I feel like almost all the good names are gone. So when people stumble upon a great name, you really gotta cinch that thing in. You know.
Absolutely. When did you first see pro wrestling?
I think it was 1975. I had just, of course, you know, I dodged the Vietnam draft.
Yeah.
I did have a legitimate medical note
If
from
you
my
did, you
doctor.
didn't have to move to Canada?
No. I didn't quite have to get to Canada. I did have offers from Stu Hart to come help train at the dungeon.
Right.
Stu really respected me as a shooter. He would often say, you know, there's not too many guys who can do a single leg takedown quite like Tony Spencer. And this is a direct quote from Stu. It's actually in Brett's book on page 32. He does talk about me in great length.
Okay.
But no, 75, I had, of course, like I mentioned, I dodged the draft, flat feet, of course. That's why I have to wear these special velvet slippers.
Yeah, I was going to say,
they
those are pretty snazzy. You're colorful.
Well, I mean, they have to really keep everything together down there. I run the risk of plantar fasciitis, which I'm sure you know is a condition that affects 55 million Americans. So the velvet slippers really help to keep the muscles of the foot together. Right. I was down in West Dennis, Massachusetts.
Yes.
I was coming right off of hitting a hole-in-one on a par 4, 364 yards downwind. And actually, I was slated that day to give a golf lesson to Sammy Davis Jr.
Wow.
And he no-showed.
I wonder why he did that. Maybe he had too much to drink.
Well, he found, what I'm guessing is I found out that he was probably intimidated by my hole-in-one.
Yep.
Didn't want to get shown up on the course.
Right.
You know, Sammy's got an image to protect.
Of course he does.
With the Rat Pack.
Absolutely.
But actually, I wandered into the Cape Cod Coliseum. I had just gotten off the phone with my good friend Tom Burke. I'm sure you know Tom Burke.
I know Tom, wrestling historian.
Absolutely.
Great guy.
You know, Bruiser Costa always used to say that Tom Burke was in the business before I was in the business. So
yeah, Bruiser Costa's another guy. Love him.
Oh, absolutely. So I wandered into the Cape Cod Coliseum.
Yep.
I ended up watching the matches there. I think the one that really caught my eye was the Duke of Doherty, the Duke of Dorchester,
Yes.
Pete Doherty,
Yes.
taking on Victor Rivera.
Nice. Victor Rivera is one of my favorite all-time wrestlers. Seriously.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not even kidding.
That is actually when I briefly worked for a moving company. That was my boss Jerry's favorite wrestler.
Yep.
Victor Rivera.
Loved him.
Yeah. Whenever I mentioned Freddie Blassie, my boss would get noticeably hot under the collar. And I'm like, oh, okay. You know that this is Freddie Blassie. He's I'm sure he's a swell guy. He's like,
Right.
Freddie Blassie.
Ah.
Choice language. So I got to talking with Gorilla Monsoon.
Yep.
Of course, Silvano Souza. Then of
Another
course,
local legend.
oh, absolutely. And then I met the old man himself, Vince Senior.
Nice.
He didn't have anything for me at the time, but he told me to go out, maybe look into some more regional promotions, kind of cut my teeth,
Yep.
make my name.
Did you ever take him up on that offer and hit like Memphis, Portland, or anything?
I had a falling out with Jackie Fargo,
Okay,
so I wasn't quite welcome in Memphis.
Yeah, you wouldn't be if you had a falling out with him.
No. Fargo and I were actually fighting over a woman. Yep.
It's too bad.
It really is. I mean, Liza Minnelli's such a great girl. She didn't have to choose between the two of us, but that's what it came down to.
Right.
And as it happens in those love triangles, neither of us ended up with her.
Nice. Well, you live and you learn.
Yep.
So, were your friends and family into wrestling when you first started watching it?
Well, obviously, my real father being Jumbo Tsuruta.
Right.
Absolutely. It's definitely in my DNA. It's in my genes. But for the most part, I was actually exposed to wrestling through friends of mine. I am not a big TV watcher when it comes to wrestling. I know that's going to sound sacrilegious, but I really dug into the PWI magazines, Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Eddie Elner, Stu Sachs.
Yes.
Eddie Elner. Yes, Eddie Elner wrote my favorite article of all time about how when Bob Backlund came back, he expected Hulk Hogan to give him a title shot and was confused when Hogan couldn't.
Right.
And I was just like, this is real. And to this day though, like Backlund did get his comeuppance, and that's great. But I remember the seeds of the intuition of wrestling being planted when I read that article.
Nice.
So
I have over 1,000 PWI type magazines.
I love PWI.
Me too. All right. So when'd you go to your first show?
Oof. Well, of course, we covered the Coliseum in '75. I took a hiatus. I was involved in different projects.
Yep.
Arnold Schwarzenegger's Pumping Iron. I was a technical advisor on that. I was doing some work, some independent contracting work with the Trump Organization.
Okay,
helping design hotels and casinos.
I am.
For the right price, I'll support anything. But my real first exposure, my real first wrestling show, was actually right in Danvers, Massachusetts,
Nice.
where I currently reside, at the Armory.
Right.
And,
So an indie show.
Oh, absolutely.
Nice.
I can't say I fell in love with it with
Right.
the big product, but I did, having that, there's something about wrestling that does
Right.
not translate on a TV screen.
Right.
And it doesn't.
Right.
There's something about being in the crowd
Yep.
and the energy that's in the room and the way that for one night in the crowd or in the ring, you become part of this experience.
Right.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Leo, I would say there's, other than
Being a lead singer in the band?
climbing Mount Everest.
Oh, really?
Spending the night with Pamela Anderson. There's nothing that gets close
Right.
to being in a pro wrestling crowd. There just isn't.
Nice. Do you remember who was anybody on that show? Do you remember?
I have
anyone?
a picture
Yeah.
of me yelling. You can share it on the. I'll give it to you later. You can
Okay,
share it
great.
on the old Facebook of me yelling at Trey, the smooth operating gangster.
Really?
Yep. Is he still?
Nice.
Is he retired?
He is actually back. I don't think he might wrestle here and there for Dante Luna or Pat Dillon, but I think he's back as like a commissioner and for one of those two promotions. Yeah, Trey, man, I'm supposed to get him here. He said yes. He's a hard man to get a hold of. You know. All right. So when you decided you wanted to be a pro wrestler, who trained you?
Well, like I mentioned, of course, I had a shooting background.
Right.
I had the connection in Stu up in
Right.
Calgary.
Absolutely.
Stu really wanted me to come in and do some training up there, really teach the guys how to really master the single leg takedown. But of course, when the time came, there was only one man to train with, and that was Mr. Vern Gagne.
Nice.
Trainer of such legends as Ric Flair, the Iron Sheik.
Yes.
And Vern's training style was just so hardcore.
Right.
Running stairs, endless squats, puking before you even got into the ring.
Yep.
But it really made me respect wrestling and what wrestlers do.
Right.
Any sort of physicality. I think especially when you're dealing with combat sports, impact sports. Not that tennis and golf don't have their place. They take a lot of skill and mastery.
Yes.
But there's something very, very primal. Very, very
Barbaric.
It's visceral. It's barbaric.
Yes.
It's mano a mano. I think my favorite part in Mick Foley's book is when he cuts that promo on the race car driver.
Yes.
And he tells the race car driver, ancient man did one of three things for sport. He either ran for his life, swam for his life, or fought for his life. What he did not do was get in his car and drive around in a circle. So, and I have the utmost respect for NASCAR, country music, the Second Amendment. I think all of those things are important and vital to our functioning society. So I just want to throw that out there too.
Nice. All right. So what about your first match? Like your first match for Vern.
For Vern, Vern actually, and I think this is a rib on Vern's part. Which he wasn't known to play a lot of ribs.
Right, he was a serious guy.
Very serious.
Yeah.
I worked Milwaukee with Greg Gagne.
Right.
And I got to tell you, for as much of a consummate professional Greg was, smooth in the ring was not him.
Right.
He just didn't have the athletic prowess of the old man. Right. I would say. But I did learn a lot wrestling with Greg.
Yep.
I did learn a lot about positioning, playing to the crowd, how to really work a hold, grab a body part and just wrench it.
Right.
So it was a learning experience. There are a lot of guys there that took me under their wing. Baron von Raschke.
Nice.
Rock and Roll Buck Zumoff, who, as you know, is in a lot of trouble these days.
Yeah, I'm hoping maybe one of my favorites, Jerry Blackwell.
Oh, absolutely. Crusher Jerry Blackwell.
AWA legend.
Absolutely. And of course, I wouldn't be where I am today without the consistent sound advice from Ray Stevens.
Nice. One of the greatest wrestlers of all time.
Absolutely.
To me, him and Dick Murdoch are like just unbelievable.
Right, and I don't think Dick Murdoch gets a lot of the credit that he should.
No, but he does by a lot. He does a little bit, but he's definitely underrated when it comes to that. But everybody like that's wrestled with him or against him say the same thing. Him and Stevens were just unbelievable.
Right.
You know, could adapt to anyone. All right. So when it was time to leave Vern, did he like help? Like, didn't back then in the days you had a start when you came into a territory, you had a start date and an end date already.
With Vern, it was about that.
Right.
It was about that. He knew that there was, and I don't want to crap on where I come from.
Right.
I'm definitely not the kind of person who throws people under the bus. But I knew I was bigger than Vern.
Right.
And I always knew I was going to be bigger than Vern. And Vern knew I was going to be bigger than Vern, and that scared him.
Right.
He really wanted to contain the stardust, the electricity, the magnanimity that I command. He knew it was going to be bigger than Vern Gagne, and he didn't want anyone around who was going to be bigger than him.
Right.
So eventually it was time to move on. Of course, there was no place for me in Memphis.
Right.
I did run the circuit at the Cow Palace for a little while.
Okay. San Fran.
Yeah, a little bit of my California heritage coming into play. I was able to pull some strings.
Quite a few companies out that way,
Absolutely, and I was doing good business in there.
Yep.
I wasn't on the main event level, but I was definitely second to last.
Right.
Kind of that
semi-main event.
Yeah, that cleanser, what people need before they move on.
Exactly.
Now I gotta be honest with you. The biggest compliment I've ever received, because we're probably gonna talk about how people like to crap on me later on when the questions come in. The biggest compliment I've ever received was my mother. Now, not Lady Di. I mean the woman who raised me.
Raised you, right.
She was sitting in a crowd in Peabody, Massachusetts one night, and they were awaiting. I wasn't even out yet. Because I'm important. I don't go on first. And there were two 8-year-olds in front of her who one turned to the other and said, and I've never known my mother to be a liar,
right?
An embellisher, but never a liar. One of them turned to the other and said, man, I wonder when that Tony Spencer's coming out. I can't wait to see what he does next.
Nice.
So, and that's really the attitude I've always approached wrestling with, is like, I want the person in their seat not to know what I'm going to do next. I want them to be surprised.
Yeah. Spontaneous.
Absolutely.
Nice. That's fantastic. All right. So I do know, like you were saying at the beginning, how I introduced you, the Granite State champion still. Can you tell me about your last few matches?
Yeah.
In front row wrestling?
Yeah, let's fast forward a few decades. I did take some time off. I rehabbed some injuries. I basically served as an executive consultant, kind of behind the scenes. Oftentimes when I was at home, when Dusty was booking, he would call me up looking for a finish. I would give it to him because it was the right thing to do.
Right.
For a mind like Dusty Rhodes to rely on a greater mind like Tony Spencer, it is a phenomenal honor.
Nice.
But I did take a few decades off of ring action when the time came. I did join up with Maverick Wild in Nashua, New Hampshire, who was running Front Row Wrestling at the time. Of course, I heard rumblings from my good friend Bruiser Costa, Butcher Hughes, Rip Morrison. Yep. All of them, told me good things. And of course, I'd seen tapes of Maverick. Stuff with him and Scott Taylor. I knew he was a good hand. I knew he was the guy I wanted to hitch my wagon to, and I definitely learned more than I thought I ever would from Maverick Wild.
Right.
So when the time came to come back, I knew Front Row Wrestling was the place for Tough Talk Tony Spencer.
Nice. Now, you also worked in Project Zero Wrestling. Tell us about your time there.
Project Zero Wrestling was the brainchild of a friend of the show, Derek Simonetti.
Oh, nice.
I do not know how he did it.
Right.
But he took a ragtag group of guys and produced a 6-7 seasons of a product that when he put it together, I couldn't believe how polished it was, how professional it was, and how entertained I was. Now, granted, I only ever watched the show for my own stuff. I never really watched anything that didn't feature me in any capacity. Because why? Why would I do that?
Right.
Why would I waste my time? But what I did see
Yeah.
was fantastic. It was, I have to say, and he's going to kill me for this, but Derek Simonetti probably has the greatest production values of any product I've seen.
Nice.
Locally, of
Right,
course.
right,
We
right.
can't talk about the big boys because they have budgets of millions and millions.
Right. No, he's a hardworking guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no doubt about it.
Absolutely. I think he's got to slow down before he burns himself out.
Yes, and we have a show coming up.
We do, absolutely.
It's called Proving Ground, Level 5.
Mm-hmm.
It's Saturday night, August 31st, at the Peabody Knights of Columbus, 96 Main Street, Peabody, Mass.
Mm-hmm.
Doors open at 6, bell time at 7. Tickets only $10. And cash bars, you got to be 21 and up.
Oh, absolutely. How many shows can you drink at these days?
Right, exactly.
But I do want to highlight the main event. We have the ace, Mike Montero, a guy who's really making his name all around New England.
He really is.
He does things off a ladder I would never dream of doing.
Right.
Derek Conway will be facing him for the Proving Ground Championship, which might I add is a beautiful championship. I think it's so well designed.
Yeah, it is nice.
It's very pretty. I am such a fan of of pretty championship belts, and that really is one of the top 5. Probably right after the Winged Eagle.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. And of course, we have the royal wedding of King Leon VI.
Oh, okay.
Who will be marrying Corinne Mink.
Okay.
And the Justice of the Peace will be none other than yours truly, Tough Talk Tony Spencer.
Nice.
This will actually be the 3rd wedding I've officiated.
Oh, that's awesome. And also Bruce Brawler Malonis, Kevin Giles, the Middlesex Express, the Hoods, and Shay Cash. And the Dick Busters. So, and yourself, right?
Yeah.
Are you booked on the show?
I am the Justice of the Peace. I'll be providing color commentary.
Nice.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to procure a featured spot on this show. Of course, and I will accept nothing less than a featured spot. So I'm not going to hang out with the dregs.
Right.
I'm going to take something that's worth a superstar of my caliber.
Okay.
But of course, the last show we ran, Peabody, we did very well. That was level 3.
Yeah.
Where I took out what's his name of the Main State Posse, Alexander Lee. That was actually honestly one of my favorite matches. Was with Alexander Lee.
Okay.
He's really good.
Yeah. I met him not too long ago when I went to my first Limitless show.
Yeah.
Listen, let's get into the fan questions. And
first
and foremost, Joey Eastman. I feel bad like even asking this, but I know you're not going to hold it against me.
Right.
Will you ever get good? What's up with that,
That's
Joey?
an interesting question coming from Joey Eastman.
Okay.
Because I was the one that broke Joey into the business. When Joey had gotten out of the Navy, he was a fan. He had done some ring announcing spots, but he was really looking for a break in the business. And I met him. He was a fresh-faced young man, naive to the world.
Right.
Really, he was the definition of a ham and egger. But I did introduce him to the right people. He was able to parlay, and he's got the voice of an angel. Let's be fair.
It's fantastic.
I mean, Joey Eastman and Charlotte Church released a gospel album. It would sell more than the Rolling Stones, Kiss, U2, and Bon Jovi combined.
That's saying a lot.
It is. But Joey is, in addition to in exchange for helping Joey really find his way in, getting him in touch with a lot of the folks who still today consider him a friend for whatever reason. I have to say I learned a lot from Joey in exchange, including whether you're at odds with the crowd or they embrace you, always be nice to the kids at the end of the night.
Yep.
Always sign autographs. Never put your bad mood or your level of disappointment onto someone who's just looking for a handshake or adulation or to give you a compliment.
Right.
Because if there's no butts in the seats, you look pretty stupid.
All right. All right. This question's from me, and I'm serious. I don't understand it. I was looking for photos of you wrestling on Facebook at your pictures, and I have to ask, do you do more cosplay than wrestling? If so, what's the fascination with cosplay? You know what I mean? Because I really don't understand it.
Well, of course, cosplay is what's the word I'm looking for? It'll come to me after I'm driving home. It's a portmanteau. That is a combination of two full words that become one word.
Right.
It's the abbreviation of costume play. Okay. Of course, originated in Japan. Anime conventions, folks would dress up as their favorite characters, take on certain attributes. And when I went to my first nerd convention in Year of Our Lord 2011, I dressed up as a character from a anime known as Hetalia.
Okay.
I was Grandpa Rome. See, the anime itself is a personification of different countries.
Okay.
And they kind of recreate historical events.
Yep.
And I was floored by. I'm always interested in subcultures. There's a professional wrestling subculture.
Right.
Within pro wrestling, there's subcultures. There's people who are hardcore Japan fans, people who are hardcore Mexico fans, people who love Blood and Guts, people who hate Blood and Guts.
Absolutely.
People who agree with Vince Russo and the decision to let David Arquette be the WCW champion. I mean, we're all over the place. But the fact that there are concentrated subcultures, I've recently discovered the subculture of princess party companies. Now, if you think wrestlers are dramatic, okay, there are companies, just in New England alone, that compete with each other to provide costume princesses for children's birthday parties, and they are so catty, dramatic, and cutthroat. I don't think that wrestlers survive in that environment.
Right.
You think wrestling is dramatic? You think the stuff I'm saying to you is dramatic? No, costume Disney look-alike princesses. It's insane.
Yeah.
But the appeal really is you get to portray, you get to live vicariously through a character. You get a lot of attention. Professional cosplayers are sometimes paid to be at conventions. They sometimes get sponsored endorsements. Oh, wow. It is a big thing. Yeah, it's really blown up over the past couple of years too.
Right. And I mean, I understand, especially when you go into Comic Cons and stuff like that.
Right.
So I did understand it a little bit, but thank you very much for the answer. Mm-hmm. Dan Tanaka, can you please tell the story of being set on fire? The whole thing. I think he wants the whole story because Mav gave a little bit of it one day on here.
I really don't know that there's a whole lot of this story to tell. I mean, the running joke is Maverick Wild set Tony Spencer on fire. Of course, he somehow had a knack for doing it when I wasn't paying attention. Granted, it only happened twice. And the instance I remember was I was sitting on the ring apron next to the girl I was seeing at the time. And Maverick, of course, was sitting next to us, and I was listening to Maverick's son spout off about some story about throwing pennies at homeless people. And this was probably the second time, because he literally said to me, Leo, "Tay, do you remember that time I set you on fire?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course I remember. I don't remember it now."
Right.
Well, I'm doing it now. And I look over, and my shirt is on fire. And I am like, "What are you doing?"
Right.
And he actually realizes that I'm about to go up because I was wearing one of those cheap souvenir T-shirts from Funtown Splashdown up in Maine. Not that it's a cheap establishment by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
I'm sure Funtown Splashdown is a friend of the show. They'd love to be a sponsor.
Oh, absolutely.
For the ring and all other sports, where Leo doesn't discuss any other sports but wrestling. When we talk about curling, Leo, damn it.
Let's go. I know curling.
I don't. Anyways, so Maverick realizes that he set me on fire. He quickly, thank God, there is a heart in there somewhere.
Right.
He patted me out. I do regret to inform Mr. Maverick Wild and yourself that particular shirt he set on fire, Funtown Splashtown no longer offers. They don't do the long sleeve Excalibur shirts anymore in that particular color. So I'm a little heartbroken.
Yeah.
It's.
Do you think Mav owes you a shirt or something?
No. Maverick put me on his shows. That he doesn't know me. I should be paying him.
Right. All right. So listen, Kid Crazy wants to know how awesome am I in every aspect, and that's him. I'm not saying me. Him.
I got to be honest with you. I've had several conversations with Kid Crazy. I've probably only understood about 3/4 of them. Sometimes I'm just not sure what direction he's going off in.
Right.
But as far as being an in-the-ring talent, he's phenomenal.
Yeah.
He is really good.
Yep.
My first front row show, he was in the main event with Setherin.
Yep.
And it was the first time I'd ever seen a front row show.
Right.
And I do remember every bit of that. I actually have the full card somewhere in my file drawer.
Nice.
And I do remember every minute of that match. I do remember because it was the week after Chris Benoit killed his family.
Wow.
And Maverick made the announcement that they were ringing the bell 10 times for Nancy.
Yeah.
And for, what was Benoit's son?
Daniel.
They were doing the bell 10 times
Yeah.
for those two folks, but not for Chris. And anyone who had an issue with that could ask for a refund after the third match, which is, again, another rule of wrestling that I hadn't been privy to. Did you know you can ask for a refund after the third match?
Well, not at all.
Apparently,
I figured once it starts, you're done.
I don't know who honors it.
Right.
But it's supposedly a thing. Then
Okay.
again, we're also talking about a collection of old school wrestlers who felt the need to protect the gate with a gun and a Crown Royal bag. So I'm not making this up. So.
All right. Kenny Nessel wants to know how many hot dogs did you eat today?
7.
7.
Hot dogs, Hebrew National Franks.
Yep.
No ketchup. Just a little bit of mayonnaise, celery seed, and horseradish.
All right.
Yep.
All right. Maverick Wild says, did you ever wish you had more physical abilities than mental ones?
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I really do want to promote friend of the show, Omaha Steaks. If you go to omahasteaks.com right now /Tough Talk with Leo, there's a 50% off promotional discount code, omahasteaks.com /Tough Talk with Leo. That is a great offer. You should jump on that right now.
All right.
What was the question?
Ed Hunt, light him on fire again. I don't understand.
Well, to address the previous question, I think that my physical abilities are on par with my mental abilities, and I think, at least from what I've been told, from Stu Hart to Paul Bosch to Bowser to Jarrett, they all told me, don't be down on what you can do for don't be down on what you can't do for what you can do. I think what I can do is something that not a lot of other guys can do. Not a lot of other guys can deliver. Not a lot of guys have a presence. Not a lot of other guys have that primal, visceral magnetism, that draws people in. And so I'm not sure that me being overwhelmingly physically gifted is something that anyone can handle. I mean, look at someone who cites me as an example for their career, MJF. He's the total package of attitude, charisma, mic skills, and wrestling.
Yes.
And look at him. How much bigger would I be if he didn't if I had that same physical prowess? I would be 10 times bigger than him. But no, I chose to you got to stay humble.
Right.
Like Mayor McCheese would say.
Yeah.
You got to stay humble.
Right.
You got to break down the ring. You got to set up the ring. You got to really, embrace your humility like I do.
Right.
With both the way I talk about myself, the way I dress. It's humble, Leo. Humility. I am Mother freaking Teresa.
Yes.
So I got to say, I feel like when it comes down to brass taxes, I really made out as a winner in the end.
All right. Paul Luciano wants to know, hey, pal, what would your idea of a Jesse Ventura comeback look like?
A Jesse Ventura comeback?
Yep.
Well, like today?
I guess.
Really probably wasn't specific. Paul's not working with a full set of brain cells.
He's not.
But I think a Jesse Ventura comeback would have to start with a clean win over Hulk Hogan, which he was never given in the 70s. And it would definitely have to lead to a lengthy championship reign where he would be unseated by Dino Bravo.
All right. Mav says, explain to Leo the alternate warrior.
So Maverick paired me with a young gentleman who's probably never been mentioned on the show and probably never will be after this, Dan Thunder.
Okay.
I think he was hoping that some of my charisma would rub off on Mr. Dan Thunder.
Right.
You ever seen Nick Patrick versus Earl Hebner from the Invasion pay-per-view in
yeah, I did,
2001. Dan and I had a match very similar to that in Rochester.
Okay.
I will never share that match with anyone.
All right.
So Maverick, in all his graces, decided that it was time to give Dan and I a different look.
Right.
So Dan became Link, a la the Missing Link,
Yep.
of course. By the way, I was the one that inspired Missing Link's haircut. I told him
Really?
he should probably do the weird,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
And I became the alternate warrior.
Okay.
Of course, I got to be honest with you, I don't get it.
Right.
I did portray the alternate warrior.
Yeah.
I don't understand what was so funny. I just went out there and did things that seemed outlandish and ridiculous.
Right.
There were guys like, people told me Maverick would be rolling in the dressing room laughing. I made Sonny Goodspeed like guffaw in Portsmouth, I think.
Really?
With the line, Jesus is awesome. This was, of course, after my manager at the time, Eastman, claimed that he was as virtuous as a choir boy and that he was there for Jesus.
All right.
So, I mean, again, the alternate warrior hasn't been seen in quite some time.
Right.
He was actually a highlight guest of a gentleman named Matthew Ryan, who ran a radio show out of New York. I used to call in.
Okay.
And Matthew Ryan actually has a big part in running Capital Wrestling, which actually has an international market.
Right. Down in Washington, D.C.
No, they're out of New York.
Oh,
They run
okay.
New York, Jersey. They're about to do their first Tennessee show with
Really?
the Outsiders. And they're actually in a market in Africa. I can't remember if it's Zimbabwe or Botswana or
Right.
one of those nations that,
Yep.
you'd never go to on vacation because you get malaria.
Yeah, absolutely. How about Adam Nessel?
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain the teepee match you pitched to Jeremy Borash?
Oh, good old JB. A fresh-faced, naive youngster he was when I met him. So this is around the time TNA was doing a lot of those matches.
Yep.
Yeah, King of the Mountain and
Right.
the Reverse Battle Royal.
Right.
And things probably, so ridiculous, I could never remember what they are. By the way, my favorite match stipulation of all time, and maybe you want to share with me yours, I love the Punjab prison. I know no one likes it because you can't really see what's going on.
Right.
I think the look is just phenomenal.
Right.
I like the idea. It just feels like it feels like everything I was trying to escape when I dodged the Vietnam draft, which I think is why it resonates with me so
Right.
much. But so, what's your favorite?
I like the hair versus hair in the cage match.
Yeah,
That was my
those are the most
favorite.
vanilla answers I've ever heard of in my life.
But they're the best, though.
Right.
Or mask versus mask,
Right.
something like that. That's my favorite.
Anyways, I love the outlandish stuff. I'm a
Yep.
big fan of the first man standing match where both guys get duct taped to the chair
Yeah.
and the first one up is the winner. Actually, of course, I'm sure you're familiar with my most famous match, the Irish Spring Death Match.
Yeah.
That occurred in Peabody, Massachusetts.
Really?
Where the loser gets their mouth washed out with soap. That's my specialty. I've never won one. That's my specialty match.
I was just going to say, had your mouth
But the
washed out?
Teepee of Doom death match
Yes.
is patterned after that time in TNA where they were doing ridiculous matches. I envision 6 sides, but it
Right.
could be done with 4.
Okay.
We do have to be, in wrestling, we do have to be flexible. We do
Right.
have to be, sometimes we got to take the world championship off somebody in a less than scrupulous manner.
Yep.
So around each post has a pair of moccasins.
Okay.
So all of the moccasins contain the same colored bead, except for one, which is a different color bead. Then around the ring, in the outskirts of the ring, we call them the Badlands. In the Badlands of the ring, there is a cigar store Indian
Okay.
in teepees. Now, these cigar store Indians are all the same color except for one.
Right.
So the goal of the match is to match the special color bead with the special color cigar store Indian. And whoever does this first wins the match. Leo, I've calculated this match. It's incredibly expensive to produce.
Yeah.
You know how much a teepee costs? Now, I think there's another reason that I'm not saying that line.
Yeah, no. Let's leave that. So listen, Paul Luciano says, so if you, Tough Talk Tony Spencer, had to face off against an Attitude Era Undertaker and Kane, which current wrestler right now would you pick as your tag team partner?
That's a good question. who would be stupid enough to take that challenge with me?
Yeah.
Brutal Bob Evans.
There you go.
Brutal Bob, absolutely.
All right.
Bob would do that.
Yeah.
Bob would do that, and Bob would do that.
Nice. And now you must have worked out with Bob a few times. I mean, over the years.
Oh
right?
yeah, Bob.
'Cause-
Bob was someone I knew through diffusion.
Okay.
I knew of Bob. I always wrestled with guys who've been trained by Bob.
Right.
A lot of my first shows were Bob shows, Bob spots, and of course in this area, in this time period. And I can't say I know Bob very well, but every time I've seen him, he's always had helpful advice.
Right.
I worked with him a couple months ago, actually, years probably now, at an Elkmania event.
Oh, nice.
He was incredibly nice to me.
Right.
Definitely helped me out when I needed to. So when I needed him to. So I like Bob Evans. And on the subject of
Nice.
that,
Yes.
I like Todd Sopel.
Okay.
Not a very popular opinion, but
Yeah,
I do
no.
like Todd Sopel, and I will say this.
Yeah.
Out of all the places I've ever wrestled, whether it was California, Minnesota, New
Yep.
York, Calgary, Florida, Puerto Rico, Tokyo,
Yeah.
even in my own backyard, I was never allowed full creative control.
Right.
My backyard, Leo. I had someone breathing down my neck saying, no, you can't do time-traveling Thomas Jefferson. Todd Sopel was the only man to give me full creative control over everything I did
Nice.
because he knew I put butts in the seats.
Nice. That's awesome.
Or he only cared about his match. I don't know. It was one or the other.
No, hey, whatever it was, I'm sure it was good for you.
Mhm.
All right. Deborah Ferraris,
Mhm.
how many times have you actually won a match without cheating?
I actually used to have a pretty big notebook of
Yeah.
my win-loss record.
Right.
And I sent it off to a printer to have them tabulate everything.
Right.
I actually think I had to go to NASA because the book was
Okay.
so long. The calculations could not be accomplished on your standard Google machine.
Right.
But there was some issues with, I'm sure this is around the time the Panama Papers became released. There was some financial dealings on that I didn't look too good in.
Okay.
And NASA actually accidentally shredded my entire record. But if I had to speculate, I would say I've probably won 15,200 matches. No, excuse me,
Wow.
15,021 matches.
Wow. That's very impressive. You want to plug the Elkmania show coming up?
Yeah, actually, I have a big announcement about that. I'm so glad you asked. The date on that again?
September 21st, Saturday night, at the Beverly Salem Elks Lodge,
Yep.
Beverly, Mass.
Yeah, that's right on Bow Street. And it's been announced for this culture shock that there will be a special attraction match featuring internationally renowned star Shockwave the Robot.
Okay.
And his opponent will be none other than myself,
Nice.
Tough Talk Tony Spencer. Leo, as we move forward
Yeah.
to the future, I'm sure you notice a lot of jobs are assumed by machines. You can't
Right.
go into the McDonald's anymore and order at the counter. You got to use the swipe screen. You can't talk to a person on the phone. It's an automated message.
Right.
There are no people.
Yep.
And the technology is there. You know that self-driving
Right.
cars are on the road, right? There goes the trucking industry. There goes taxi drivers.
Right.
There goes people who make their living off Uber and Lyft as independent contractors.
Yep.
It can all get flushed away. And the board of directors at Elkmania are going to invite a robot into professional wrestling. No, I know he's already there, but why is he coming in to our turf? What
don't
happened
know.
to the blood, sweat, and tears of flesh and blood men?
Right.
Could a
Right.
robot paint a picture? Can a robot sing an aria? Could a robot assemble a suit like this one?
That is impressive.
I don't think they could, and that's why I am not only going to defeat Shockwave the Robot, I am going to dismantle his hard drive, I am going to erase his programming, and I am going to make him into nothing more than a decorative soap dish. Which, by the way, once it's fashioned, I will carve your initials in it. You can put it on your vanity sink in your bathroom, and you will always have that memento.
Wow. Thank you for thinking of me that way.
You're welcome.
Let's play the name game.
Absolutely.
All right. Master Flesh.
He's his own dude.
Yeah.
He definitely was always willing to get in the ring with me.
Right.
hits like a Mack truck.
Yeah.
If he clotheslines you, he's really gonna send it. But Paul's a good guy. You know,
Okay.
Paul knows who he is.
Right.
He's very like most things in wrestling. It's not a gimmick. It's not.
Right.
He is. That is who he is.
Right.
With maybe a few embellishments here and there.
Right.
I do remember my favorite story about Master Flesh was when he and Maverick had a strap match. I believe it was in Claremont.
Yeah.
And they're whipping each other, whipping and whipping, and Paul just gets up, Flesh gets up, and he smiles at Maverick. And he goes, "Don't you know you're only making me stronger?" And I'm like, I would have walked out of the building at that point. But
nice. All right. Christian Angus.
another guy who I learned a lot from. Have you had him on the show?
No.
Oh, I'm so
No,
proud.
and I want
Let me
him.
ask you this: have you had Tom Burke on the show?
Not yet.
Really?
Yeah. I talked to him about it at the Hall of Fame. So
You're
I'm
slacking,
hoping.
Leo.
Nah, man. I do so many other things, man. I got another show I do. You know what I mean? Family commitments, you know?
Listen, you can spend a week not making chicken wings with Sonny Goodspeed and have Tom Burke on.
Oh,
Christ's sakes.
Let's get. Do you have his he's still on Facebook, right?
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
So, people know how to make spaghetti, Leo. You and Sonny don't have to tell them how.
Oh yeah, nah. Believe me, the way I am as a chef, please. All right. So,
Christian Anger's another guy, very solid in the ring.
Right.
Very much. He definitely has a love for wrestling.
Yeah.
That you have to.
Right.
But he has a fantastic wrestling video collection. He is just all about. He's a very good tactician. He's very good at taking apart holds and analyzing matches and picking and choosing what worked. Actually, the second main event I ever saw with Front Row Wrestling was him versus Handsome Johnny.
Oh, nice.
In Claremont, New Hampshire.
On the list too.
Yeah.
Nice. How about Shane Sharp?
Shane Sharp. Shane Sharp is, again, that was a guy who really got me into Mavericks back in the day. I do want to go on record as saying when Derek Simonetti told me that I was too nice to be part of the New England pro wrestling scene, it was Shane Sharp who gave me that opportunity to prove Derek Simonetti otherwise.
Right.
And this is not a knock on Derek. Despite his gruff exterior, he is a softie at heart. He's not gonna like me saying that, but he is.
Right.
But Shane Sharp really, he was somebody to look up to.
Okay.
Even though I had my years in,
Yep.
I didn't have my years in here.
Right.
So he kind of gave me a role model to emulate.
Nice.
All around good guy. Probably too nice for wrestling.
Johnny Vegas. He did a tough talk with you too, I think.
He did. Johnny's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Johnny's actually training guys still.
And still working too.
Yeah, absolutely. He's still at the New England Pro Wrestling Academy.
Yes.
Training guys. I saw him. He did the Justice of the Peace thing for Holy Matrimony.
Yep. That never happened.
No, and that's a shame too.
Yeah.
Because if anyone, if it comes down to the Chaotic World Championship and the Till Death Do Us Part with Ava and Angel, come on, Leo.
Right. Take it away.
Leave the belt.
Leave the belt.
Leave the belt. Take the women. Listen, women, unfortunately, actually, in that situation, I probably would take the belt because, as you know, a woman, when you're a wealthy man, a woman is your only depreciating asset.
There you go. How about Vern Vicalo?
Vern Vicalo?
Yeah.
I don't really know Vern that well.
Oh, okay.
I'm a big fan of his work.
Yep.
He does do. I did see him at Astromania. You were there.
Yes.
I did see him at Astromania against. Was it Todd? Did he take on Sopel?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
I
It's a good match.
I thought that was a great match.
It was a
That
good match.
Very, very befitting of. Sometimes you go to a main event and it doesn't feel like a main event. But
Right.
That match definitely had a main event feel.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And the crowd was very behind Vern.
Yes.
I felt like that crowd was a little finicky because it was a fundraiser.
Right.
Anytime you have people who are there to support you and they're not like wrestling fans.
Right.
They can be a little hard to pull out.
Yeah.
But Vern really pulled it out of him, and
Yeah.
I thought that's a testament of a wrestler right there. Is can you make someone who isn't necessarily a wrestling fan care about wrestling?
Right.
So,
How about Johnny Idol?
Johnny, I wish I was Johnny Idol.
Yeah.
I wish I was Johnny
Yeah.
Idol.
Me too.
I mean, he's a musician.
Yeah.
He's,
Right there alone.
He's good looking.
Yep.
I understand he makes great chili.
Oh, I did not know that.
I think maybe I'm misreading my Facebook posts.
Right.
But if there are any three guys I wish I could be, the list pretty much goes Johnny Idol,
Yeah.
Perry Von Vicious, and of course the obvious ringer, Maxwell Jacob Friedman.
Nice. Okay. Very good. How about Antonio Thomas?
Antonio Thomas is my mother's favorite wrestler.
Really?
My mother has gone to shows without me
Yep.
to see Antonio Thomas wrestle.
Nice.
As a matter of fact, I do want to give props to Antonio Thomas and Sheldon Goldberg.
Yeah.
Because my mother did, when my mother and I drove all the way out to Chicopee, Massachusetts one night.
Yeah.
And Antonio came out and he gave my mother a big hug. He gave her a kiss on the cheek and put his ring vest on her.
Yeah.
And that was so cool. Like
That's
he didn't
awesome.
have to do that.
Exactly.
He didn't have
Yeah.
to, but he did.
Right.
I'll never be the talent Antonio Thomas is when it comes to wrestling.
Right. Right.
But for him to do that,
Yeah.
I remember things like that. You know, I
Exactly.
remember things like going fishing with Maverick, who I guess he just posted his shoulder hurts so bad he can't go fishing.
Yeah,
right
I
now.
saw that too just before I left the house.
I remember things like Johnny Vegas's father. Johnny Vegas's father,
Yep.
who I'm told was a professional stage hypnotist in Las Vegas, pulled me
Right.
aside the first night after I did the Alternate Warrior, and he said, you know, he's like, you got something. He's like, I've been in the stage business a long time, and there's something about you that other people don't have, and I
Right.
just want you to know that. And to come from a non-wrestling guy, because I
Yeah.
knew he wasn't after anything. He wasn't trying
Right.
to butter me up for any reason, or maybe he just thought I was, special needs and felt bad for me.
I'm sure he thought you were good. How about Atlee Green?
Atlee is responsible for my favorite match of all time, the Irish Spring Death Match.
Yep.
Atlee consistently has always held a spot for me on the Elkmania shows. He doesn't have to do that.
Right.
I'll be 100% honest with you. I'm 33. I'm not going at a full grind anymore. I'm not at practice 2 days a week. I was never at practice 2 days a week. I'm not even at practice 1 day a week.
Right.
It's not like I'm wrestling a full schedule.
Yeah.
So the fact that Atlee does keep me a focal point of the Elkmania shows is
Yeah.
nice. But he is responsible for taking part in the Irish Spring Death Match with me. We had a lot of fun. I got to say, I am probably the only man in that particular. I think it was 2011.
Yeah.
I'm probably the only white man to whip a black man in Massachusetts in 2011 and get cheered for it.
Right.
That was a little weird.
Yeah.
Or it's kind of a progressive state down there. I know it's different up here in New Hampshire, of course, being the Grand State champion. But we had a lot of fun. I think we actually burned the crowd out so much that we were the second to last to the main event. People got up their coats to start leaving. And I think that was probably one of the only times Todd Sopel was mad at me for burning the crowd because I went too long.
Right.
And him and John, you remember Johnny Cromwell?
No, I don't.
He was a guy who was trained by Bob.
Okay.
Him and Cromwell had to work 10 times as hard to get the people to come back into the
Wow.
seats.
All right. How about Ryan Andrews?
Ryan Andrews is this guy I know.
Yep.
He's the one who actually introduced me to Derek Simonetti.
Okay.
So he's the one who helped to really get me involved in this scene. I mean, I
Right.
was already a name, but I wasn't really, like I said, I was on the outskirts. I kind of consider myself, I was working on other projects. Of course, I've been busy the last few years too. I remember when I went, I was a guest down at WrestleMania 24, and I actually proofread Ric Flair's retirement speech for him at the Hall of Fame. It was an emotional night for Rick. It was an emotional night for me. Of course, we had wine, women, and booze for a few decades between the two of us. He actually married. One of his wives was actually a former fiance of mine. So I've got that connection.
Yeah.
With Ric Flair. That connection. That connection.
Yeah.
But Ryan really, anytime I need a riding buddy,
Yep.
because it's so boring to drive to wrestling shows by yourself. Ryan's
absolutely.
a willing accomplice. So yeah, that's he's
Nice.
not a bad dude.
Okay. How about Chase Del Monte?
Oh, I don't really know Chase.
Okay.
I mean, I know he's a big name on the scene.
Right. Okay.
But I'm not really personally acquainted with him.
All right. Who was the Grand Wizard in Front Row Wrestling?
Wasn't that a group of, I believe,
don't know.
I'm speculating here, that was a group of fans that were really present on the old Front Row Wrestling message board.
Right.
And they would come to shows and they were fans with their own gimmicks. This is around the time, too, of the prevalence of the Burning Hammer. Were you ever part of the Burning Hammer
Nice to read
board?
it.
Yeah, the Burning Hammer message board.
Yeah.
The local-
I never posted. I just used to
I
read it.
always think of him in the same vein as the Gray Ghost and Jack Diamond, just guys
Okay,
who were
yeah,
super
yeah.
fans.
Yep.
But I think one of his conglomerate got in Bruiser Costa's face one night,
Really?
and Costa called him that word that you don't call Spanish people.
Yep.
And
Yep.
wow.
Yeah. Bad news, huh?
Well, I mean, I would never do it.
Right.
It was,
Exactly. No, I hear you.
But I think that was a little. I never really kept my finger on the pulse like that.
Right.
Those super fans did like to really heckle me.
Yeah.
I actually have in my photo album at home. I'll have to show it to you. It's online somewhere.
Yep.
When I was campaigning for my shot against the Granite State Championship, I released an image of me against an American flag,
Okay.
and it was some sort of promotional phrase
Right.
that doesn't come to mind right now. But what they did was they put a large man in a diaper over my face and said, "Tony Spencer for diaper trainer."
Nice. Making money?
Hmm?
Did you make any money doing that?
Being a diaper trainer? Absolutely. I've potty trained the best of the best, Leo.
All right. Real quick, we got less than a minute. Has Jason Sanderson, Wolfman, was he around when you were? At all?
I've talked. I actually, the first time I ever met Wolfie was the night that I got thrown. My first match against Shane Sharp.
Yeah.
I was thrown out of the ring up in way up there in not Colebrook. Way up there though.
All right.
I got thrown out of the ring, and because Maverick said I have 3 left feet,
Right.
I actually kicked somebody's grandmother in the face on my way out. So she was fine. But that was my first experience with Wolfie. But he was long gone by the time I rolled in.
Right. You want to plug the 2 shows coming up?
Yeah. So we've got Proving Ground Level 5, Saturday, August 31st. Then of course there is Elkmania.
Yes, September 21st.
Yep.
And Beverly at the Beverly Salem Elks Lodge.
Yep.
We're out. Thanks, Tony.
No problem.
Peace.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.